Hello guys, in this video we're going to talk about number line, inequalities and interval notation. Let's say we have an equality. X is greater than negative. Now you must be familiar with the signs. This is greater than. So here we have the signs. This is greater than, less than. This one is greater than or equal to, and this one is less than or equal to. These are the signs that we will use throughout. Now let's represent this on a number line. So we can draw a number line. We have 0 at the horizon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it will continue towards the positive direction, towards the right hand side. To go 6, 7, 8, 9 and continue. And then 0 and backwards we will have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, and it will continue towards the left hand side. Negative 7, negative 8, negative infinity. Now, the inequality is x is greater than negative 3. So we can draw an open circle and then pull a line this way to represent our inequality on the number line. So that means x is greater than negative 3. So it is values that are greater than negative 3 and towards the positive infinity. Towards the positive infinity. So the values of x is equal to, it cannot be negative 3 because it says it's greater than. It is not greater than or equal to negative 3. It is greater than. So it will be negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and it will continue to increase, or the values of x is towards the positive infinity. Never stop. So that is how we represent this on a number line. That's how we represent this on a number line. And in interval notation, we use a circular bracket and then negative 3, and it will increase towards the positive direction, the positive infinity. Now what you need to take note of is that when we are using greater than or less than sign, our circle on the number line should be an open circle. And for the interval notation, we should have a circular bracket. Whereas using a greater than or equal, our circle on the number line should be a closed circle. Or less than or equal to, it should be a closed circle. And our interval notation, we will use a square bracket. For this one, we're using a greater than sign. So that is why we have an open circle. We have an open circle. And also, in terms of representing a heat, on interval notation, we use a circular bracket. A circular bracket. And not a square bracket. A square bracket is only used when we have a greater than or equal to sign, or less than or equal to sign, so as a closed circle. Now let's try this. X is greater than or equal to negative 3. First it was x is greater than negative 3. Now we have x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Now we can represent this on a number line. So let's say this is our number line. So whenever we use a greater than or equal to sign, or less than or equal to sign, on a number line we will use a closed circle to represent our inequality. So negative 3. So x is greater than negative 3, so we have a closed circle and a line towards the positive infinity. So x is all the values this way. x is greater than or equal to -3. So the x values will be equal to, now this time it will be -3. It says it's greater than or equal to -3. It will be -2, -1, 0, and it will continue to increase in the positive direction of positive infinity. Now we can represent this on interval notation. Since we use a greater than or equal to sign, greater than or equal to sign, we will use a square bracket. So it will be -3 and all the way towards the positive infinity. Now this one we are not sure of the exact number where the x values start. So that is why we will use a circular bracket. Don't worry, you will come to understand this as we go on doing some more exercises. Now let's try this. M is less than 5 but is greater than or equal to -1. We can represent this on the number line. So it says m is less than 5 but is greater than or equal to -1. M is less than 5. So it will start from m and it will come down this way towards the left hand side. And for m we will have an open circle since we're using a less than sign. So it will come, but then it says m is greater than -1. It is greater than or equal to -1. So we will stop here. We are limited by this inequality. And then the sign is greater than or equal to, so we will use the closed circle. So that is how we represent this inequality on a number line, where the values of m is within this interval. So the values of m will be equal to -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it cannot be 5. Why? Because it says m is less than 5 and not equal to. We can represent this using interval notation. In interval notation, we will have a square bracket and then -1, since we're using a greater than or equal to sign, or less than or equal to sign, and then it will be, and the numbers stops at 5. But then we're using a less than sign, so we will use a circular bracket. So that is how we represent this in interval notation, and this one in number line. Let's try this. Now we can represent this on the number line. Since we use the greater than or equal to sign, we expect to have a 2 closed circle. So p is less than or equal to 10. So from 10 we will have a closed circle, and then 0 we will have a closed circle. So the values of p is within this interval. The values of p is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, either of that. So that is how we represent this inequality on the number line. Let's represent this on an interval notation. Since we use the greater than or equal to sign, we should use a square bracket. So it will be 0 and 10. So that is in interval notation, and this one is on a number line. Let's say 0 is less than p, but p is less than 6. We can represent this on the number line. So we know that if that's less than, if we use the less than or greater than sign, we will use an open circle from 0 all the way towards 6. So this inequality is represented in number line just like this. And in interval notation, we will use a circular bracket. So that will be 0 towards 6. Let's say minus 3 is less than or equal to x, but it's less than or equal to 5. Now we can represent this on the number line. We should have a closed circle because it is a greater than or equal to sign. Negative 3 is less than or equal to x, or in other words, x is greater than negative 3. So x is greater than negative 3. And then it will come until 5, where it is limited by this inequality. X is less than or equal to 5. So it is less than or equal to 5, so it will stop here. And it will have a closed circle because we're using a greater than or equal to sign. So that is how it is represented in number line. And in its interval notation, we will use a square bracket, since it square bracket, and then minus 3 and 5. So that is an interval notation. X is greater than or equal to 0. So x is greater than or equal to 0. Closed circle. It will be towards the positive infinity. X is all the values that is greater than 0. Greater than or equal to 0, including 0. So in terms of interval notation, we will have a square bracket and then 0, and then it is all the positive numbers, or it is towards the positive sign. So it is towards the positive infinity. It will never stop. It will continue towards all the positive numbers. So we will use this sign to represent all the positive. It will move towards, this sign is positive infinity, meaning x values is towards all the positive numbers. And we will use this circular bracket since we don't know what values it starts. Even though we are using a greater than or equal to sign, but for the x values it is not limited, so we use this circular bracket. You're familiar already with these signs. Now when we use these signs on the number line, we use a closed circle. When we use this sign on the number line, we use a closed circle to represent it on the number line. And for its interval notation, we use a square bracket, except for values of x that are towards the positive infinity or towards the negative infinity. And when you use the greater than or less than sign, we have an open circle on the number line, and we will use this circular bracket.